Live from the SABC's Auckland Park studios, welcome to this evening's episode of The Watchdog. My name is Vuyo Mvoko. As the country's political parties enter into coalition talks, an increasing number of voices are saying a grand coalition between the ANC and the DA might not be a bad idea after all. We look at the pros and cons of such a possibility. But not before we speak to youth leaders of the two parties about their hopes and aspirations after yesterday's elections outcomes. ANC Youth League Task Team Convener Nongceba Mhlauli and DA Youth Leader Luyolo Mpiti are my first guests. The Watchdog starts now. It's a race against time as political parties enter a crucial weekend of talks that will determine who runs the 66 municipalities that are now hung, where no party got an outright majority after Monday's poll. Just to recap the overall result, the African National Congress achieved a majority in 161 municipalities. The Democratic Alliance achieved a majority in 13, and the Inkatha Freedom Party will run 10 municipalities. Tonight we get some reflections from the leaders of the biggest two political parties, ANC Youth League Task Team Convener Nongceba Mhlauli and DA Youth Leader Luyolo Mpiti. Good evening to both of you. Thank you so much for your time. The electioneering is over. We thought, we should get the voice of young people just to get a sense from you as to how you feel about how this election went, and to perhaps with the benefit of hindsight, to talk us through issues that affect young people, issues that may have perhaps been missed or ignored, as during the course of, the electioneering we were going through over the past 6 weeks. Nongceba Mhlauli, your takeaways on the back of yesterday's result.
Good evening, Vuyo, and good evening to your listeners and to Luyolo as well. Firstly, we are, of course, a little disappointed at the outcomes of the results, particularly as the Youth League, because we really put in a lot of work. Young people all over the country literally campaigned in every ward, in every VD. We took our campaign back to the basics, where we really engaged communities around the issues that affect them. We also obviously understand that a lot of work still needs to be done. A lot of things would have happened at a local government level. A lot of municipalities, have not been run to the satisfaction that we would have wanted them to be run. And we also understand some of the frustrations that young people face in terms of youth unemployment, not being able to access opportunities for empowerment, voter apathy amongst young people, and all of those other challenges that we do think were a contributing factor to the outcomes of these elections. And we've even said that we now really have to sit down, and come up with the way that we are going to respond to some of these challenges.
Luyolo, your part?
Well, thank you very much, Vuyo, for having me, and very good evening to your listeners as well. I think what was very clear yesterday, or at least on the 1st of November, was that we had very low voter turnout. And I think that's obviously a concern for many reasons, because young people did not come out to vote in this particular election. And I think it's very concerning, because local government really is the core face of service delivery, and is, the sphere of government that meets people on a day-to-day basis on the street corner. And so I think it was very concerning to see, a huge majority of young people not turning up to the polls. And of course, we find ourselves in times where, we are really struggling to really have the buy-in of young people into this democracy. And I think we really need to go back and reflect what that means, whether young people did not come out because they did not want to legitimize a system that they could not see themselves in or find expression in. And I think that really begs the question for political parties to really reflect quite deeply about the type of democracy that we want, and making sure that people are fully engaged and understanding the power of the vote, the power to appoint or to fire a government that is not working for them.
Nangaba, we knew about unemployment. It's been the problem of unemployment, youth unemployment in particular, has been with us for a while. Were you able to, as young people of the ANC, influence the conversation around the kind of messaging that young people wanted to hear, the kind of messaging that would have driven them, to the polling stations on a voting day, with, of course, embedded in that would have been obviously your own messaging about how the ANC will make life better for them. Were you able to influence such processes?
We believe that, one, if you remember, when we spoke, in fact, let me start here. When we spoke at the manifesto of the ANC, when we spoke on behalf of young people at the manifesto launch of the ANC, we said that as young people of the ANC, we are going to campaign for the ANC, and we have 3 non-negotiables. We said the first non-negotiable that we have as young people that we demand from the party in government is that we want, 100 youth-led municipalities as mayors, as speakers, as MMCs, as part of the troikas, etc., etc. And part of that demand, actually, we are currently in the process right now. In fact, as you would have known, that the ANC, well, all parties, in fact, that would have won councils, are in the process of finalizing with the appointments of who would become mayors, etc., etc. The ANC is going to have a very rigorous process around the interview, an interview process around that. As the ANC Youth League, we are going to be participating in those processes. And we are going to continue advocating for young people to take up those positions, precisely because we believe that, the kind of challenges that you have at local government level really does need the energy, the innovation, and the capacity that we know young people possess. We also said that precisely because of the state of youth in South Africa, our second demand is that we want youth-focused budgets, budgets that focus on youth empowerment and women empowerment as a precondition for adoption in the councils. And that is precisely because we understand that outside of having something forming part or forming a precondition before a budget is adopted, it then becomes futile for us to speak about youth empowerment programs at a local level when those are not budgeted for. So we said we want to start the process of youth empowerment and the empowerment of women, young women in particular, at local government level as part of the budgeting process, so that those programs are actually funded and that they're carried out. The third thing we said was that we want skills and capacity to really be, at the foremost consideration when these deployments are done. And that's also because we understand that the challenges that you have at local government can no longer be resolved by people on the basis of having an ANC membership or on the basis of having, being the struggle. We want people with skills, we want people with capacity, we want people who are able to technically, intervene in some of the challenges that we have. And that's how we've been able to influence the ANC's process going into particularly the next phase that we are going into right now, which is the deployments to the various councils.
But just looking at how your party nominations process went, did you get a sense that you were listened to and accommodated in the manner you had envisaged? And secondly, did you also get a sense that where the ANC governs, you will be, that agenda that you spoke about will indeed be taken seriously, will be pursued?
No. To answer your question, honestly, no. We fought as young people in the ANC, and we continue to fight to this day for the inclusion of young people. If you were to remember, Vuyo, the ANC had written within its guidelines, in fact, to say that 25% of the list have to be young people. And even for us to get the 25%, which is actually not that much, if you look at the youth demographic in South Africa, 25% is only but a small fraction of what is the totality of the youth demographic. And we fought to get the inclusion of the 25%. And even where there was inclusion, young people were so far down the list that with the current outcomes of the elections right now, those young people, are not in what you would have deemed as the safe zone. So the reason that we are actually right now, in fact, in the statement that we issued earlier on today, we said we still demand that particular 25% as a minimum for the inclusion of young people in the deployments that are going to take place. And beyond that, we're still continuing to fight for the inclusion of young people in strategic positions at local government beyond just the deployment into councils. So it's been a continuous struggle. We've made obviously some headway where you would have seen young people deployed. Some of them having raised their hands to become councillors, and we are very proud of the young people who've done that. We're very proud of the young people who've won the awards. We're very proud of the young people who form part of the lists. And we congratulate those young people, and we're very excited about what they have to offer, and we have all the confidence in them to be able to really bring about the change that we need at the level of local government.
Luyolo, what has been your experience in your party? Did you insist on any specific things that are going to serve the interests of young people?
Well, I think one thing that I can really say is that I'm incredibly proud of the DA, particularly in this election, because we've managed to get a 30-year-old and a 34-year-old elected as mayors, respectively in the city of Cape Town and also in the Umgeni municipality. These are young people who are now going to serve their communities at the highest level of local government within their respective regions. And I think that's really something to be proud of. But above and beyond that, I think all the young people that have raised their hands within this election to stand as DA candidates, DA councillors, whether ward or PR, we really have seen a huge amount of young people coming through the ranks of the party and being elected on the 1st of November to serve their communities. And I think really to echo what Nongeba has said, regardless of political parties, I think all young people that have been elected in these elections, we are very proud of them, and we are very hopeful for the type of impact that they will provide within their communities. But of course, the DA has always led the way in terms of ensuring that young people are serving, not only in local government, but in parliament and in legislatures. And I think this is just a trend that we've always had in the party. So, we've never really needed to have or to call for quotas in the DA, particularly because we know that young people will find expression within the various different structures of the party, whether it be as public representatives or as leaders in the organization. As you know, the DA public representatives throughout the country. So we are very proud of those people that have really risen to the call to really work to South Africa and improve South Africa. But above and beyond that, I think it was very important for us to really emphasize through our policy process the issues of unemployment that is affecting young people, the need for skills development amongst young people, and also just to look at new sectors in our country in order to create jobs. Because we do know that the sectors that we've really relied on as a country previously are starting to fade away. And so we need to be innovative to find those new sectors and be able to empower young people to be able to participate economically into these sectors. And I think
what I wanted to ask was, I mean, I guess it's fine. I mean, if you happy or satisfied that at a representative level, there are now young mayors, and you see no need for quotas, as you say. But when you look at, the very real, practical things that are being or have been done to, meet the unemployment and other needs of young people, can you say the same? In other words, are you proud? And, are there things that you can point to?
Well, look, no one can ever be proud of what we have in this country. We are sitting at 74%, the expanded definition of unemployment amongst young people in this country. So no one can ever be proud of those particular statistics. And so I think it's very important as a political party, as the DA, for us to continue to look for ways in which to empower young people to be able to find jobs and to also be skilled. And I think it's also very important for us, to move this particular generation away from relying on grants and relying on particular stimulus packages from government, but rather to empower them to be able to empower themselves and their communities around them. So of course, we are not happy with the levels of unemployment, but we are happy with the type of ideas and strategies that have been put together through the policy process of the party that the DA Youth has really been very involved in. We've submitted a document prior to the policy process where we outlined our issues and what we think could be the potential solutions to deal with issues like unemployment amongst young people in the country. And of course, this process is something that really goes, that is run with governments, people who are in government in various places. And so there's a lot of, conversations and exchanging of ideas with people who find themselves being able to make those particular decisions. So I think all in all, where we do govern and where we are going to govern, those are the issues that are going to be at the front line of those governments. How do we deal with the issue of unemployment amongst young people in South Africa?
Now, I mean, both of you, I mean, your parties have, the most significant losses in this election came from your two parties. The ANC was down by about 614 seats, the DA by 288 seats. And obviously, you both have been on the campaign trail. It's been like that for all of us, for at least the three of us who are having this conversation. It's been a tough 6 weeks. So perhaps you haven't really had the time. I'm sure you're looking forward to resting a bit, taking your shoes off, watching movies, and that kind of thing. But I'm keen to know, just top of your mind, going forward, what are the things that you think, what is the new thinking that you may want to, take to your parties or bring to the conversations both your parties are going to have as you both reflect, on these massive losses that you have experienced? Ngaba?
As the ANC Youth League, we believe that the ANC's pledge to do and be better is now more critical and crucial more than ever. It is for the first time since the dawn of democracy that we've gone below the 50% mark. So that in itself is the reason for us to really take very serious the pledge that we made to the electorate when we went out into communities and said we pledge to do and be better in building communities. We've also said as the Youth League that our focus as a task team in the work that we are doing in championing the interests of young people and rallying them behind the banner of the ANC Youth League, of the ANC, is really spelled out in 5 areas, and that's what we call the 5 R's. We said, we need to rebuild, we need to revive, we need to renew, we need to reimagine, and we need to reposition the Congress Youth League in the interest of young people in South Africa. So as we reflect and map out a way forward, that is going to be what is our guiding principles, and even going into the various discussions on how do we move forward or rebuild from this point that we are at as a movement as a whole. Those are the things that we will be keeping at the forefront of our minds as we get into, or we continue to engage on how do we get out of where we are right now, and really ensure that in 2.5 years' time, when we meet again on the campaign trail, we have a different narrative, and we are in a very different position in reminding the electorate of South Africa why the African National Congress is their organization and why they ought to trust us with their vote. But of course, we understand the message that the electorate have given us in this election. It's a message that we take very seriously, and is a message that we hope they will not have to, send again, because really this ought to really be the last time that we find ourselves in the position that we find ourselves right now. And we trust that it is. We trust that we have the ability to do the work that needs to be done to get us into the future.
Luyolo?
Well, I think we definitely did receive a message from the electorate in this particular election. And I think what lies ahead now for us as the Democratic Alliance, and indeed the DA Youth itself, is to really reflect on that message and reflect on what communities have said to us and how we can actually improve our message and improve what we want to say to South Africans, and why the DA is the only party that really can take the country into the future. I think it's very important for us to remain the center of South African politics, as many South Africans slip into racial enclaves and start to go into parties that have nationalist and racial demeanors about them. But I think what we've learned in this election is to really go back to communities, be able to understand the message that was said to us, and then communicate from there. But I think there's a lot to take away from this election. We've made inroads in KZN. We've won our first ever municipality in KZN, which is something really that is that makes us very proud as the Democratic Alliance. But of course, we've lost seats. And I think it's very important for us to really reflect deeply on why we lost seats and how we can improve ourselves heading into 2024, because indeed the DA is the only party that can take on the ANC. And now that the ANC is at its weakest, under 50%, it presents a real opportunity for us as the DA to really sharpen ourselves and prepare ourselves to speak directly to voters and to really get them to join us in this project of really strengthening our democracy, but also bringing service delivery to our communities across the country, which they really need at this point.
Okay, before I let you go, there are some people watching this program who have sent us some tweets. I'm going to read those I can read and then get you to quickly respond before I let you go. Cleaning Joint says, personally, I have no hope this leadership they have been there preaching and doing nothing on the ground. They keep on creating organizations that fail to respond to mere emails. Their leadership is nothing but a smoke. Maestro Ranchonyane says, I hope ANC youth are aware that it's almost 2022, not 1992. There's a new fight, and it should be a common goal. Educated people must be able to help grow our country. No more favors, and we should do away with color and gender. Luyolo, your quick response. Don't have too much time.
Thank you. I think it's very clear this generation is asking for us to move away from the past. They are tired of hearing about struggle credentials. They are tired of hearing about, what happened during apartheid. I think we want solutions, and we want jobs. We want, we want services. We want things to happen in this country. And I think the message that is very clear is that, if these organizations are not going to be able to do it, then as young people, we really need to go in and really implement and fight for our voices as young people within these organizations to make sure that the word and the work of young people shows up innovatively in every space that we find. No, there's no smoke in any organization. There's certainly no smoke in the DA. We are on the ground with the people all the time, and with humility, we receive a message and we take it forward from there.
Okay. Ngaba?
We believe that young people are the solution. We believe that the problems that you face in the organization as well as local government level, we believe that it is us, the youth. We, the youth, are the solution to many of the problems that we face. We believe that we have the ideas, we have the energy, we have the know-how, we have the education, as the tweet said. We have the experience. We have the currency as well to be able to intervene in some of the challenges that we have, which is why, going back to what I said earlier, our third non-negotiable being the issue around skills and capacity as a precondition for deployment into government, precisely because we believe that it's the hour of youth, and we believe that there has to be a fundamental shift in how we've been doing things, precisely so that we do not find ourselves where we find ourselves here today.
That's where we're going to leave it. Special thanks to both of you, ANC Youth League Task Team Convener Nongceba Mhlawuli and DA Youth Leader Luyolo Mbiti. After the break, we explore the possibilities of grand coalitions between the ANC and the DA for the sake of the people. Well, as the country's political parties enter into all manner of conversations this weekend about how they can form coalitions to run the 66 hung municipalities, an increasing number of voices are saying a grand coalition between the ANC and the DA won't be a bad idea after all. We look at the pros and cons of that possibility. Now, before I introduce my guests for that conversation, let's take a look at what our team of journalists put together today on what politicians have been saying over the past 24 hours on coalitions. Political parties have started negotiations to form coalition partnerships. Some of the parties will likely be forced to swallow their pride and work with their opponents. But others have made it clear they will not compromise their principles to form marriages of convenience to govern municipalities.
It is then my singular honor to hereby declare the 2021 municipal elections concluded as free and fair.
With elections done and dusted, the next step is for political parties to come together and form coalitions. About 12 million South Africans cast their votes in these local government elections. This number represents less than half of the 26 million people who are registered to vote. It means voter turnout for the year 2021 municipal elections were lower than in the previous local government elections in 2016. Thursday's results saw the governing party, the ANC, dipping below the 50% mark for the first time since the dawn of democracy in the country.
There are people we will not talk to. Two parties have indicated they won't talk to us.
Which are those parties?
The DA announced yesterday that they would not wish to talk to the ANC. We are the opposition. We similarly would find the DA and Action SA a bridge too far to cross.
DA leader John Steenhuisen says his party is already in coalition talks with other political parties.
We will be certainly looking to create stable coalitions. Those processes have already started, and we look forward to being able to form stable coalitions where we can. Where we cannot, we're going to go onto the opposition benches and be an excellent opposition, just like we are in the National Assembly and have been in other councils.
The EFF is keen to be part of the new collaborative governing structures.
We are more than ready to govern. We're not backtracking anything. I'm saying what he said. Let them come, let's talk. If we're not ready to govern, we'll say no one is speaking to us. We don't want to talk to anyone. The first preferred model is that you take your municipality, we take our municipality. In that municipality, we supervise you through legislation. We don't go into the executive. We become speaker, chief whip, and committees, and we hold the executive accountable.
The IFP have made some inroads in these elections. The party gained substantial numbers, especially in KwaZulu-Natal, where it has a strong base.
The next phase, of course, is going to be the coalition cooperation talks, which are going to now roll out the new phase of administration. And of course, the eThekwini results are very, very good.
The Freedom Front Plus and Patriotic Alliance also made strong gains in these municipal elections. Ntantla Khatlani, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, 5 of the 66 hung municipalities are metros, Nelson Mandela Bay being one of them, where political parties, especially the smaller ones, say it's too early to disclose who they will form a coalition with in the highly anticipated talks that have been started. In that particular metro, the ANC and the DA both won 48 seats and need the support of smaller parties to form a government, if they can form one just between the two of them. There are 12 smaller parties that the DA and ANC need to convince if each one of them wants to go it alone with the other parties and not together. It's also unclear if, of course, the kingmakers, your EFFs, will form a coalition with any of the two. We are now joined by the leader of the Northern Alliance, Gary van Niekerk, but also by the leader of the Abantu Integrity Movement, Mkhuseli Jack, who have both won seats in Nelson Mandela Bay. Later on, I'm going to bring into the conversation political analysts Ongama Mdimga and Dr. Ntsikelelo Breakfast. But I'm going to start with you, Mkhuseli Jack. In a piece we've been running today, you are arguing that it'll probably be in the best interest of that particular metro if the ANC and the DA come together and form a grand coalition.
Yes, Vuyo. Remember, the people have spoken, and the language the people they use is a ballot box, or simply put, the ticks. Yeah. So they have made and they have told us as Abantu or people that what they want. And they have made their observation. And I think their observation and instruction is intelligent. One, they are saying the two major parties in the metro have messed up. And they were not prepared to give any one of them the kind of outright majority they called for. And therefore, it's common cause. The best thing that can be done by the two parties, in my opinion, is that they must join hands and rebuild the metro in the interest of the electorate that bestowed grudgingly that responsibility upon them.
Gary van Niekerk, you think that's a recipe for disaster?
Good evening, Vuyo. It's an honor to be on your show. Thank you for having the Northern Alliance on your show. From our side, the question that needs to be answered is, why did the people vote for us? The people voted for us for change. What kind of change? They want service delivery. That is what the local government elections is all about after all. We in the northern areas of Port Elizabeth have been neglected by both the ANC and as well as the DA. We have spoken to a few political parties thus far, and look, it was basically meet and greet, nothing serious. But as far as coalition talks have gone, we're willing to listen to whoever. But an ANC-DA coalition, if that was the question, if I heard you correctly, is a recipe for disaster. We're in for a rough ride if that is what's on the table at the moment.
But then, I mean, can you not say or bind the two? Let's say they were to enter into an agreement that they will govern together, and then you then make an undertaking that you will support their programs for as long as they do the things that the number of people that voted for your three councillors want, because in other words, have everyone supporting a program that the two will have to drive with your blessings. Why does it have to be one or the other? Because, and I'll tell you straight why I'm saying that. Because the tendency in the past, the lessons that region has learnt over the past 5 years, is that those small parties that form coalition or that make or break the coalition arrangement tend to be very inward-looking, and they forget about the broader interests of the metro, and that is what has led to their collapse and the problems that have arisen. Gary?
The ANC supporting the DA and the DA supporting the ANC, that needs to start first. But let me tell you the problem you have with these two parties. If this will definitely be a marriage of convenience, and it will not last. I'm not saying it won't last because we won't be included. We'd love to be included in terms of governing, but there is no way these two will be able to agree to anything going forward, and we will be left in the cold and watching these two fight day in, day out.
Kusali Jack, I mean, if you were to be asked, would you have a preference in going with one or the other, or are you adamant that the two getting together is the best solution?
Well, Vuyo, obviously, I campaign to be elected as I hope that my party, my movement is going to gain sufficiency that will have made us to force the fact that I become the mayor of Nelson Mandela Bay. I have a whole lot of reasons, which I won't go into that makes me believe that I will do a good job. If I did get that. But okay, as we say now, we know what the voters have said. Never mind what I wish for. I believe that the two, if they come in, they understand the sentiment of the voters. The voters rejected their request. And therefore, I believe that as I do for myself, when I do something wrong and somebody tells me, I strive at the best I can. And I think there's a great incentive on both parties to do the right thing now going forward. Stability is going to be critical. That is what is paramount in my mind in believing the only way to rebuild the metro. This metro cannot be rebuilt in the middle of a chaos that can happen as we have seen in the last 5 years. That is why I believe that if these two can, because remember, these are South Africans. They are loyal to the constitution and everything of this country. There is not like, no, you are supporting a foreign a group of people and so on. We are all South Africans who are trying to do the good thing. And I believe that if they invite me in that, of course, I will come in subject to all the things that I have said that needs to be done in terms of rebuilding the metro during the campaign. We are not campaigning now. We're talking about what is best for Nelson Mandela at this juncture. Let me tell you, to have 13, 14 different little parties, whoever goes with that is a recipe for a greater disaster than what we have already experienced.
Ongama Mtimka, I know that you don't have the time, and sincere apologies for only for the conversation earlier that went longer than I thought it would. But let me give you the first bite so I can release you. Just your thoughts on this whole concept of a grand coalition between the DA and the ANC for the Nelson Mandela Metro.
Very interesting, Prof. We are giving good evening to you and your listeners and your guests. It will seem like we've been sharing notes here. So my view matches the two positions. Indeed, there is the idealistic position of everyone bearing the hatchet and getting things done. And then there's the realist position of power plays and how those will come into the fray. My view is that, and this is a piece that is developing, that it's time that the assumption which we make, and this is thinking which derives from Blue Ocean strategy thinking, which is a business tool, that says the assumption that is made that competition is vital for politics to work does not always have to be true. The reason why we have a proportional representation system is so that we can have as diverse a range of interests as possible represented in a council. Now, if our system delivers proportional representation at the level of council, we have in a municipality both executive and legislative powers vested in a municipal council. If that is the case, then it follows that it makes sense to take proportional representation and put it also at the level of the executive. So my view merges the two by saying the following. It should not only be a coalition between the ANC and the DA, but rather a government of local unity, if you like, or a government, a co-government pack, which involves as many parties as possible in the executive. Now, what you do, you drop the executive mayoral system and adopt the executive committee system. In terms of the executive committee system, if my memory serves me well, in municipal legislation, the committee of members of the mayoral committee have got collective power as opposed to the executive mayor, who has MMCs who serve at their own pleasure. Now, when you have an executive committee system, the mayor that you need is a mayor who can actually help facilitate the relationships, because each member of the executive would actually be reporting to council and would have enough authority. My view is that the parties should consider, part of it is what Julius Malema is saying, okay, let's come together, and one person has got the speaker, the chairperson of MPAC, and all the other roles that enforce accountability, while you have a diverse range of political parties assume key positions in the executive mayoral committee. And in that way, you will have a system in terms of which what's going to work is more the strength and the competency of councillors in order to play oversight over the executive, more than the party line, because there would be no party line to toe. We will have council will have a cohort of executives to hold accountable for each for their own portfolios, and then the mayor for the coordination role that they play. So I think that this is the right thinking. The ideal that is of working together needs to be brought together with the realist push towards individual politics, so that you have an agreement that works. And I think that there's already legislative framework that says executive committees can exist as opposed to an executive mayoral system. And that takes a council resolution to change from an executive mayoral system to an executive committee system.
Ongama Mtimka, thanks very much for your time this evening. Dr. Ntsikelelo, I'm wondering, I mean, I wasn't unfortunately part of that conversation, but you were part of a conversation that reflected on the numbers we've seen. You were together with your panelists examining, what the possibilities are, going forward. Something that was hosted by the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University. Just your thoughts on the possibility of an ANC-DA coalition. Dr. Breakfast, are you there?
Yes, can you kindly repeat the question?
I was saying just your thoughts on this, possibility that perhaps a grand coalition of the ANC and the DA would probably be good, or the best option for the Nelson Mandela Metro.
Yeah, so I think these power sharing arrangements, Budvuyo, are not normally based on ideological proximity. In fact, the interesting phenomenon, in my view, about the policies of both the ANC and the DA is that they don't differ that much at local government level. I'm not talking about now, national issues. Because, for instance, if you look at the policies that have been pursued by the ANC at local government level, it's market-related policies of privatization of services, the elevation of market forces above the state, total deregulation of the market, the idea that if you want to promote development, the local state must take a back seat, and the private sector is the one that must lead the process through privatization of services, and that might lead to the growth of small, micro, medium enterprises and absorbed the unemployed. On the other hand, the DA also believes in the same thing. So they don't differ that much. But I think maybe there might be other national issues that, might affect the way they see things. So it's going to be interesting how the turn of events is going to unfold between them.
I was looking at social media, Dr. Breakfast, and one Andre Lungisa. We know, he remains a powerful figure in the politics of the ANC in that part of our country, saying, well, something akin to, we will never. In other words, they will never work with the DA.
Yes. I'm not taken aback, Budvuyo, by that. That's a view that is held by the faction of radical economic transformation. Remember also, there was that issue of, I can't remember what it was in Parliament, but there was an issue, I think it was an issue of vote of no confidence that was proposed by the DA, and the ANC, I think they voted for it, or something along those lines. But the issue is that the radical economic transformation faction had a view that no, the ANC cannot vote with the DA because the DA is the enemy of the ANC. You know what I mean? So I'm not taken aback by that. I saw it coming that they wouldn't want to join forces with the DA because they see the DA as a party that is to the right of the ideological spectrum, or a party that stands against what the ANC stands for.
A quick one, last one, for you. Given the experiences of the past 5 years, let's say what we're talking about tonight doesn't happen, this idea of a grand coalition between the ANC and the DA. Just looking back at the experience of the past 5 years, if one of the two parties goes into a coalition with this whole group of smaller political parties, what are the chances of its success, given what we know, what we have seen actually happening in that metro?
I think coalition formations, they tend to lead to instability, unfortunately. because they are not based on principles. They are based on musical chairs. They are an epitome of opportunism. They are about access to power because, the political elite, they join forces. A person gets a seat, maybe in the mayoral committee. The following day, the other party approaches, whoever has a seat, and then the person gets a better offer, then the person pulls out, jumps ship, So they are based on these coalition formations on musical chairs. They are not based on rendering services to the inhabitants. No wonder from time to time they fall apart. So I'm arguing that the coalition formations, they lead to instability. They lead to lack of responsiveness of the political elite and thereby affect the responsiveness of bureaucracy.
Nkuseli Jack and Gary van Niekerk are 10 seconds each. We've run out of time, but here it's, I can't resist this. If the two or none of the two parties, big parties, want to enter into this grand coalition arrangements, if you were to be given a choice to choose who to go with between the two, who would you go with, Nkuseli Jack?
My viewpoint has been always that choosing between these two organizations, as far as Nelson Mandela Metro Bay is concerned, makes no sense because, as far as I'm concerned, they are the same. I could choose any one of them with my eyes closed. I can't put any. The other one has destroyed the metro over a period of 27 years. The other one over a period accelerated destruction of 2.5 years or in a 5-year period. So what I just hope for is that the message coming from the voters that was loud and clear that this must stop, and it must stop now. And that is the only thing that I bang on everybody. And I think up until the people start to mess up, I am going to give everyone the benefit of the doubt that is going to reach the call of the people and is going to do what is right for the metro and what is right for the people of the metro, and to bring back investors flying into this metro of ours, which got everything that is needed by any investor anywhere in the world. So we can't throw that away. Based on that, I'm happy to say that, as I always do, by the way, everybody, when he's given a first, second chance, allow him to do so until he messes up.
Gary van Niekerk.
First, I want to address Dr. Breakfast. Dr. Breakfast said just before the elections, the week before the election, said that the NA stands no chance of winning one seat. Dr. Breakfast, here we are with 3 seats. Regarding the way forward, we're certainly looking forward to serve the people. These two parties, to choose between the two of them is probably the worst choice you could ever give anybody. To look at, the DA has already said they're not willing to work with the EFF, which would mean that there'll be a whole grocery list of parties that we'll have to go into a coalition with. Whereas on the other side, you're looking at a probable list of 4 with the ANC. For stability's sake, and that's just what our people deserve, that's just what the people voted for. For stability's sake, I think we would be leaning towards that way, the ANC side. But if it's also not the vote that we got was not to bring back an ANC-led government. So we will definitely be negotiating with him. But yes, it's a really difficult choice to make going forward.
That's what we're going to leave it. Special thanks to our panelists this evening. And that's your show for tonight. To join us again on Monday. Have a good night and a great weekend.